I've been thinking about this. There's something that's been going on for centuries. At one point, we had all of these great conquerors. Alexander the Great, Catherine the Great, and Peter the Great, and Genghis Khan, Attila the Hun, Julius Caesar! He kicked some serious ass! Yeah, so we've been talking about the great Gaius Julius Caesar, the Roman general who kicked some serious butt in the Gallic Wars, and who formed a political alliance with two ever so awesome politicians. That's Pompey, or Pompey the Great, and Crassus. This alliance was known as the First Triumvirate. So you've heard the phrase that three's a crowd? Well, this applies nicely to the First Triumvirate, a very short-lived escapade comprised of three power-hungry egomaniacs. So Caesar and Crassus were buddies, but Pompey and Crassus didn't play well together in the sandbox, and Pompey also envied Caesar for his Gallic War butt-kicking legacy. Crassus was a double threat. He was regarded as the richest man in Rome, and he made a name for himself in the political arena by defeating Spartacus and his slave revolt. Crassus's downfall came at a big battle in 53 BC, fought between the Roman Republic and the Parthian Empire. Crassus and gang were no match for the Parthian horsemen, and Crassus and his army were killed. So incidentally, after Crassus got brutally murdered, the Parthians are believed to have mocked Crassus's wealth and greed by pouring molten gold down his throat. And it didn't stop there. They used his severed head as a prop in a play for the king. Crassus's death marked the end of the First Triumvirate, and for 4 years afterward, Pompey and Caesar basically got along okay. Until they did not get along okay. Because of Pompey's military successes, he was nicknamed the Great, just like his childhood hero, Alexander the Great. This was a nickname that people who liked him gave him. He was referred to as Teenage Butcher, though, by those who did not like him due to his tendency to be cruel and merciless. It seems like all the greats have this dark side to them. Anyway, one of the hallmarks of the First Triumvirate was the marriage of Pompey to Caesar's daughter Julia. Julia, unfortunately, died in childbirth in 54 BC, a little before Crassus. It came as no surprise that Pompey and Caesar, being the meek, laid-back, and humble guys that they were, should become rivals for leadership of all of Rome. This resulted in Caesar's civil war. Here is Caesar's civil war in a nutshell, and I emphasize the word nut. From 52 to 49 BC, Caesar's and Pompey's relationship went seriously downhill. The Senate wasn't thrilled with Caesar still fighting in Gaul, and tried to get him to return to Italy, without honors or a second consulship. Meanwhile, Caesar, who really wanted that second consulship and also wanted his honors, built up troops in southern Gaul, and was marching into Italy. Pompey was positioned to defend Italy. Caesar was declared an enemy by the state. Big moment here. In 49 BC, Caesar crossed the Rubicon, a river making up the northern border of Italy. At this point, Caesar quoted a famous playwright with, "Let the die be cast." Caesar moved south with the intent of capturing Pompey. Pompey escaped to Greece. Caesar followed Pompey and defeated him at Pharsalus in 48 BC. This is when Pompey made the infamous ill-fated trip to Egypt, which was a really crappy decision, as Cleopatra's lunatic little brother Ptolemy had him killed, possibly out of fear of Pompey taking over Egypt. Ptolemy was immersed at this time in a nasty civil war with his sister. Thinking that it would impress Caesar and possibly get Caesar on Ptolemy's side against his sister, Ptolemy showed a visiting Caesar Pompey's severed head. Caesar was not on board with this savage display. Caesar spent time away from Italy, getting in the middle of Egyptian affairs, including his own affair with Cleopatra, and defeating the king of what is now Crimea, who was invading and trying to seize his former father's kingdom of Pontus and causing all kinds of chaos. It was during Caesar's immediate defeat of him that Caesar wrote the famous, "I came, I saw, and I conquered." While Caesar was away from Italy, his buddy Mark Antony was in charge, but no one particularly liked him being in charge, because he wasn't really doing that great of a job, and Caesar ended up demoting him when he got back to Italy. Caesar dealt with some folks who didn't want him in charge, celebrated some victories, received some honors, including gestures that were symbolic of a king or a monarchy. Notably, he changed the calendar to a solar one called the Julian calendar. He made a bunch of changes in addition to this and did a bunch of things. But Caesar's penchant to being treated and regarded as a king was the beginning of the end for Caesar.
On a personal note, Caesar may have suffered from epilepsy. Some believe that he had malaria, hypoglycemia, or some kind of an infection on his brain caused by a tapeworm. Caesar was married 3 times. The first wife died, and he divorced the second wife. Sounds a little bit like Henry VIII here. And he was married to his third wife until his own death. Caesar also went on to have quite the affair with Cleopatra, and they had a son together, the ill-fated Caesarion. Caesarion was killed at the age of 17 by Caesar's adopted son, Octavianus, Caesar's great-nephew who later became Emperor Augustus, the founder of the Roman Empire. Conspirators planned his assassination. Among his conspirators was the famous Marcus Junius Brutus, the son of Servilia, who was Caesar's mistress. Ironically, Brutus had been very much against Pompey, who was responsible for the death of Brutus's father, and Brutus also knew Caesar intimately. Caesar was killed on March 15th, the Ides of March. He was attacked with daggers a mere 23 to 35 times. At this point, the great Caesar was pronounced dead. There was lots of drama after Caesar's assassination, with Caesar's former business associate Mark Antony having a relationship with Cleopatra, and both were at war with Augustus, and they ended up committing suicide. It's the stuff that Shakespearean plays are made of.